The morning the CEO fell into Aram Qureshi's lap, the entire park seemed to stop breathing. It was a bright, forgiving kind of daylight, the kind that makes even tired souls believe they can try again. Aram sat on a weathered wooden bench in Crescent Park, his 4-year-old son Michael asleep against his chest, tiny fingers curled into the fabric of his faded blue shirt. Aram had mastered the art of staying still, of becoming a quiet shelter. Since his wife's passing 2 years ago, his life had shrunk to early mornings, packed lunches, freelance design work squeezed between naps, and long walks in the sun to save on electricity at home. He had learned to carry both groceries and grief in the same hands. That morning, just as he adjusted Michael's blanket, a blur of motion came rushing down the paved jogging path. Expensive heels on uneven bricks, a phone clutched too tightly, breath uneven and eyes distant. And then, in one sudden, impossible second, the woman stumbled. She tripped over the broken edge of the pavement and fell forward, straight into Aram's lap. If you believe in kindness, in unexpected second chances, in the way strangers can change each other's lives without warning, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whisper Tales 3. Stories like this remind us that hope often arrives unannounced. The woman froze in shock, her perfectly styled hair now slightly undone, her tailored ivory suit creased. For a moment, Aram thought she might yell, or push herself away in embarrassment. Instead, she simply closed her eyes as if the fall had knocked more than just her balance loose. Aram could feel her trembling. Michael stirred but didn't wake. Her name was Saira Malik, though Aram wouldn't learn that until later. In that moment, she was just a woman who looked like she carried the weight of skyscrapers on her shoulders. The kind of woman who belonged to glass towers and boardrooms, not dusty park benches in the morning sun. She slowly tried to stand, but her ankles seemed to protest. Aram gently steadied her, careful not to wake his son. The world around them resumed its rhythm, joggers passing, birds chirping, sunlight filtering through neem trees, but something had shifted in the air between them. Saira looked at Michael sleeping peacefully and something in her expression softened. Saira was the youngest CEO of a rising tech firm in the city. Her days were a blur of decisions that affected hundreds of employees, investors demanding growth, and headlines praising her as a visionary. But beneath the polished surface was a loneliness so deep it echoed. She had built an empire, but somewhere along the way, she had lost the ability to sit still in sunlight. She had not taken a morning off in years. That day, she had left her driver behind, determined to walk and think before a crucial merger meeting that could either triple her company's worth or collapse it entirely. Instead, she had fallen into the lap of a man whose entire world fit into the small child sleeping against his heart. Aram offered her water from Michael's tiny dinosaur bottle. It was an awkward, ordinary gesture. She hesitated, then accepted. The cool sip seemed to bring her back into her body. She noticed Aram's worn shoes, the slight dark circles under his eyes, and the tenderness with which he adjusted the blanket around his son. There was a quiet strength in him, something she hadn't seen in boardrooms filled with sharp suits and sharper words. They sat in silence for a few minutes. The sun grew warmer. A breeze carried the scent of fresh grass. Saira's phone buzzed repeatedly, but she ignored it. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt paused. Aram's life was not glamorous. He worked late nights designing logos and brochures for clients who often underpaid him. He had sold his motorcycle to cover hospital bills before his wife passed. Every day was a careful calculation of expenses and energy. But there was a gentleness in his struggle. He measured success not in profits, but in whether Michael smiled before bed. Saira found herself watching the child's peaceful breathing. She had once imagined having a family. In her early 30s, she had postponed love for leadership, postponed motherhood for milestones. The promotions came. The awards came. But the nights grew longer. The apartment grew quieter. Her fall that morning had not just been physical, it had been the collapse of a wall she had built around her exhaustion. Then it happened. Michael stirred awake, blinking up at the unfamiliar woman in his father's lap. He studied her serious face, the faint stress lines around her eyes. And in the softest, sleep-warmed voice, he whispered a single word. "Mama?" The word was barely audible, a breath more than a sound. But it shattered something open. Aram felt the familiar ache in his chest, the reminder of absence. Syra felt something else, a warmth and a pain colliding. The child wasn't calling her by name, he was reaching for a memory. Yet in that fragile whisper, she heard a truth she had avoided for years. Success had never held her the way a small, trusting voice could. Michael quickly realized his mistake and hid his face in Aram's chest, embarrassed. Aram kissed his son's hair, whispering reassurances. But Syra's eyes filled with tears she hadn't allowed herself in boardrooms or interviews. That single word had exposed her hunger for connection, for meaning beyond quarterly reports. She surprised herself by placing a gentle hand on Michael's head. Not possessive. Not intrusive. Just human. In that touch, there was no CEO, no single father, no broken pavement or buzzing phone. There were just three people sitting under morning sunlight, each carrying invisible wounds. The merger meeting that day did not go as planned. Syra walked into the glass building later than expected, her ankle wrapped and her mind changed. She postponed the deal. She shocked her board by announcing a new direction, one that prioritized employee well-being over aggressive expansion. Investors protested. Headlines questioned her judgment. But for the first time, her decisions felt aligned with something deeper than ambition. As for Aram, he returned to the park the next morning, unsure if the encounter had been a fleeting accident. But Syra came back. Not in heels this time. In simple flats. Without an assistant. They began sharing morning sunlight, careful conversations about loss, pressure, and the strange ways life redirects us. Syra started funding a community daycare near Aram's neighborhood, not as charity, but as partnership. She hired Aram's design services for her company's new social initiative, valuing his quiet creativity. Their bond was not built on rescue or romance, but on recognition. Two adults who had been strong for too long finally allowing themselves to be seen. And Michael? He began calling her Auntie Syra, his laughter echoing through the park like a promise. Sometimes healing does not arrive in therapy rooms or grand speeches. Sometimes it falls, unexpectedly, into your lap on an ordinary morning. If this story touched your heart, if you felt even a flicker of hope in that small whisper, please take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Your support keeps stories like these alive on Whisper Tales 3. Special request, comment the word hope if you believe even the smallest moment can change a life. Because in the end, it wasn't the merger, the money, or the titles that healed them. It was a child's sleepy whisper in the warmth of daytime sunlight, a reminder that sometimes, what we're chasing has been quietly waiting for us all along.